chão, até o chão. Desce, vou até o chão, desce, vou até o chão. Eu desce, vou até o chão, até o chão, até o chão.
Peace, family. This is QI Critical Thinking in the building. I'm gonna wait for a few more people to come in. I started a little early, so that's why I was gonna loop the song twice to give everybody a chance to come in. I'm impatient. It's like sitting here just waiting. It's like, okay, let's just go ahead and get this started. Y'all make sure y'all smash that like, share, and subscribe as you enter the building. Oh, yeah, I'm gonna make that announcement. I got you, KB. I said I was gonna do that anyway. All right, let me make sure that is off. Okay. All right, peace family, welcome to the building. As you know, like we've been talking about the 2020 census, I have the links in the building. I've been doing some research. They made some changes, and I'm going to tell you why. All right, let me give my shout outs. Shout out to TC, HBCU Queen in the building. Thank you for, putting those SWAT teams on the map over there at George Blogs. Shout out to Hills Lipsticks and Guns. I like her. She's funny and she always keeps me going. And my friend Melissa Ochoa in the building. Florida Plord. I always mess up your name. Pollard in the building. All right. And KB Johnson in the building. Hey, y'all, family. KB is a barber and trying to get a channel started up. I'm subscribed. Y'all show KB some love. Go ahead and subscribe to KB's channel. Show some love because that's what we do over here. We're supporting everybody. Anybody who's a content creator, let us know and we'll show you some love, as well as, I bring you on the panel and introduce you as well. That's what we do. It's all about us team working, networking, and building all together. We got to, learn how to love each other instead of trying to bring each other down. All right. Okay, the Queen Royalty lives in the building. I have like two of the best moderators in the building, Melissa Ocha and the real Queen Royalty lives. And also subscribe to her channel as well because she has a lot of great content. Lightstorm in the building. Lightstorm has, a very spiritual sister. All right. Okay, so I think I've spoken to everyone. Y'all make sure y'all hit that like. I'm going to start with this. All right, now Jay-Z, first up, let me talk about him for a minute. Jay-Z donated $200K to a Trump supporting group. And why is it supporting, or why do I bring it up? Because I want to pretty much expose or highlight intent. If Jay-Z, it was Jay-Z along with the NFL. So I mean, if you're gonna give $200K to a group of Trump supporters, the same group, they were in the news for their Twitter post or something where they were cutting off a young man or two young men's dreads, and people got disturbed behind that. So if Jay-Z would give $200K to a group like that, along with the NFL, once again, what is him buying an NFL team going to do for us? Nothing. Only him. And I'm sure that 200K could have been used for something within his community, because like I said before, it's out there. You can read the articles where Jay-Z, he's responsible. He was behind the gentrification in Brooklyn. So Brooklyn was predominantly black. And now, they're faced with gentrification. And what's important with gentrification is the fact that a lot of times what happens is they go in and they convince all of these old landlords and all of these people who've been there for years to sell their property and stuff like that for pennies on the dime, or they force all these people to sell their property for pennies on the dime. Then bigger, richer people come in, they do renovations, and they run the price of the rent sky high. So the average people, poor people who were living there can't afford to live there anymore because the rent is too high. And they're doing this all over the country. So, they're forcing, poor people out. This is what happened in Chicago. Pretty much gentrification. They shut down Chicago projects, Caprini Green and a couple of other ones, and they made it where all of these different gang members had to, that lived in their own segregated areas, now live all amongst each other. So the crime rate, murder rate, and all of those things began to rise. And did they know what they're doing? I think so. But so, like, this just goes to show you that, like, these people get incentives to basically mislead us. He was given an incentive to go on there and make it seem like him buying an NFL team was helping Colin Kaepernick situation, and was also going to help us as a people. Because remember, his speech was about either I can help one or I can help many. So Jay-Z, how are you helping us? How are you helping us, really? All right. And also, y'all, like, I'm sort of disturbed about this devolving culture thing. I can't sleep. I can't rest. Because I'm just gonna say, I don't want to throw any shade or anything. I'm not gonna be like that, but I'm just gonna say, shout out to Jay Wilson. I'm not sure, there's a lot of different opinions out there. However, I'm gonna take the high road, and I'm gonna say he didn't know what type of person devolving culture, may have been or whatever. But let me just tell you this: I myself have had a conversation with devolving culture. Me and TC. HBCU Queen, who was in the building, we had a conversation with him, and and so I know the extent of his knowledge or his history. So he knows more than the average. He doesn't, like, his knowledge is not like what you learn in school. It's extensive. It's on a scholarship level. But still, I feel like there should have been some exchange back and forth. communication exchange back and forth with those conversations, not just for the sake of showing him that we do have knowledge and we do know our history, and we are intelligent, but also for the sake of educating our other people who may not know our history, because we all don't know everything. So, every time that somebody comes up with, comes and they give intellectual or give historical facts or give historical details or anything related to us, there's always someone that's going to learn. So I feel like that was a learning opportunity for a lot of different people, as well as, to prove the point that we are knowledgeable. Because like I heard someone say, I listened to a live stream. It was from, I'll get it in a minute. It was I listened to a live stream today, and somebody was commenting on it, and they was like, shout out to Deshaun Farley, and I want to say shout out to that brother as well. And also they commented, and they were like, we need to have these debates. We have to have these debates. When we're going to court, we have to debate. A court is like a debate. Politics are debates. When they're like in the House or the Senate and the Congress, they're debating. When we're trying to convince people of things, we're debating. And we're debating based on facts. So the more facts that we know about our history, about ourselves, and even some of these politicians, are susceptible or fall ignorant to a lot of history. And that's part of the problem. A lot of them even don't know the extent, because a lot of people, when they go to school, they stop at collegiate level instead of learning outside of that, because the real knowledge and the truth of our history is outside of what we learn in school, and that's for a reason. So I feel like I know that was an opportunity for a learning opportunity for a lot of people, as well as devolving culture himself. Because like the sister who did the live streaming, which I hope I think of her name, she stated that we have to, just by not showing him that we do have intelligence, just by allowing him to prove us ignorant, maybe like the reason in the future that that person or other people decide not to give us a chance, because that might be the stereotype they're left with. So we have to, by giving them that intellectual exchange, that would have changed the stereotype, or that would have debunked the stereotype that he had. So there's nothing wrong with the communication, because some people's like, why educate why educate as they say, or want to say, white supremacists. Why I'm still up in the air about that, or whatever, whether he's a white supremacist or just a butthole, or a know-it-all or whatever. But I've heard he's exchanged some derogatory statements or whatever. In that case, yeah, definitely. But I'm not inferior, and I'm not intimidated. And I would have been more than happy to have that conversation and debate, as I have already before, with him, and show him that, hey, I study, I read, I have a brain, it works as well. And we have a future, and we're going somewhere, and we're not going to continue to allow these types of things to happen to us. We're not going to continue to allow these stereotypes to be placed upon us. So, that's what I wanted to say about that. The more that, we have to be able to have conversations. And another reason is because when we don't know things, we don't know things, we don't have knowledge of certain things, it's easy for people to get over on us. That's what's been happening to us for the longest period of time. People have been able to get over on us because of the simple fact that we don't understand what they're a lot of times putting right in our face. They put everything right in our face, just like the civil rights rollback, like with the women's rights and the LGBT rights, right in our face. Just like taking Amendment 19, Amendment 14. They're doing this right in our face. However, because a lot of people don't know the amendments, or they don't take time to go look up the amendments and try to understand what those amendments mean to us, they don't know that they're contributing to their own demise. A lot of our ignorance is what makes us contribute to our own demise. As they always say, knowledge is power. And we need to spend, I know it's fun, to be entertained and everything, but they shucking and jiving, while we shucking and jiving all the time, they're working a 20, 30, 50-year-old plan, an ancient plan on us, and it's working, especially the Trump administration and the Republicans. They're trying to literally snatch everything from up under us, right up under our noses, and we don't even know. And it's voting season. Another thing that we have to do, and another reason why we need to learn how to be able to learn a lot, have knowledge and be able to communicate with people like the evolving culture, is because last voting season, it was exposed. After voting season, there was Russian bots, and they were setting up Black conscious pages. They were setting up pro-Black pages. They were setting up, basically anything that had to do with Black, they would go in there. And this is where a lot of that propaganda don't vote came from. And I also seen it today with Brother Sanchez over there, Flat Earth community. I mean, he's a little special, but I mean, he's out here telling people already, don't vote and votes don't count. But voting is our only voice, and our votes do count. The reason why they're able to get over is, once again, because we lack the knowledge of how the political system, how the voting system and different things of that nature works. Therefore, when they're doing things right up under our noses, just like this 2020 census fraud, we don't even know. And that's why I dedicate my channel and my time to coming on to making sure that, like I, highlight and I bring these things forward with hopes that, just each one teach one. Because, if we want to survive, we have got to get up on our game. How are we going to learn to be self-sufficient? How are we going to make, how are we going to, make a difference or change or do better if we're not, putting in some type of work? Now, I'm glad that our ancestors were not like us. And once again, I'm going to say it one more time for the people in the back. I am glad that our ancestors are not like us. We're not like us, because our ancestors had fight. Do you think that if a lot of these things going on right now, they wouldn't have been in the church, and it wouldn't have been all over the news? There wouldn't have been protests all over the place. There would have. And yet we sit back, just like the other day. I was talking to somebody, and they said, the Bible says we won't get reparations. Well, you need to stop reading that Bible. Our ancestors wouldn't have let the Bible tell them that. They would have probably kept the Bible in their hands. Nobody's saying you got to get rid of any religion, anything like that. I'm not doing that. What I'm doing here is we need to get rid of all ideologies. And I'm not saying get rid of the religion. I'm saying get rid of the ideology. Get rid of that state of mind of defeat that we can't. Because to my knowledge, if you believe in a higher being or God, like me, I do, then you believe that all things are possible. That's also in the Bible. All things are possible. And that's how our ancestors believe. They believe it with a little time, a little dedication, a little patience, all things are possible. And they gained rights for us. They gained the right to vote for us. They gained, even though it wasn't always it wasn't a good thing. They always good things that we gained, but they gained a lot of, things to give us opportunities today that they didn't have. And that's what we have to do for our future generations. We have to build for the next generation. We have to ensure that they have rights, that they have protection, and that, they have opportunities that we don't have. But we're falling by the wayside. We've gotten this comfortable, defeated state of mind. And a lot of people are, it doesn't count. You know, like when you to say don't vote after your ancestors died, that's defeat. To say we won't get reparation, that's defeat. I'm not defeated. I'm not inferior or defeated. I'm gonna push on, and whoever coming with me, coming with me. But I'm gonna push on because I believe and I know that we can and how we can. And like I was saying, this is election season, so they're sending out people like Devolving Culture. Because if you notice, like on that Jay Wilson original panel or whatever, where he was on, he was pushing Trump. So they have plants out here all over the place, infiltrating our community and trying to get into our mindsets because it's voting season, or trying to steer us away from things that work towards our best interests. Things that work, let me make sure I'm saying that right. They're trying to steer us away from things that work toward our best interests. So they're making us, we're voting against ourselves. They're trying to make us do things against ourselves. All right. Now, the other day, I got a shout out to BB Nice because the last Women Empowerment panel, she pulled up the census. And I had already been studying the census. And, you know, when she started calling out the categories, I was like, she's, no, that can't be right. So that's how I got to where we are today. I went back in and shout out to Melissa Ocha as well. She also helped me to find, the correct information. But they have changed the census. They have changed the census. In fact, some of the questions that they're asking on the census is illegal. They stated that the only question that they're actually supposed to ask you on the census is how many people live in your household, their ages and things of that, their names and things of that nature. But also, let me go ahead and say this, because BB was asking, well, she made a mistake. She didn't think that, she thought we were talking about something else. But it is a federal law. It's against federal law to not comply with census. So you have to fill out the census. In fact, this year, the census will be online, which causes great concerns. But this year, you can actually do the census online. So by all means, make sure you do the census because it's against the law to not comply with the census. And as well, it's good census. There are things that like census benefit us. Like for instance, it helps allocate funding to different communities. Funding. It helps allocate funding. I mean, we're talking about for roads. We're talking about for everything. It helps allocate funding. That's how funding is allocated because they have to know how many or the population in that area to know how much money that area, that state, that county, that parish, or whatever it gets. So it's very important that, we want to do the census as well. Down the road, the census is also how we manually trace our family trees. We as a Black American Indians we created the census system. In fact, like once you trace your family tree all the way back, at least to the 1800s, and I'm going to try to come on here with that. It's a lot of stuff, and I try to handle it by way of significance. But I have to come on there and on here and help everybody trace their family tree because it's very important that you know who you are for this 2020 census as well. And I'm going to explain in just a minute. But if you can trace your family tree back to the 1800s and you can trace down your original tribe, in which I'm going to try to, I'm going to come on and show y'all how to do that as well, because they still exist. Then if you call your chief, talk to your chief will tell you that he or she has the remaining parts of your genealogy. They have the rest of your family tree because Indian tribes kept censuses as well. We've always kept census. But and so we taught them the census system. Okay, but I'm going to try to attempt to screen share here. This is very important. I hope it's working out. Let me go over here so I can see. I hope it works out because I that's one thing I like about Google Hangout. Google Hangout had good screen share. This one seems to work a little slow and get stuck. So I'm gonna give attempt to screen share because I want y'all to. But these links are also at the top of the page. I always provide the links and everything at the top of the page. All right. All right. There we go. All right. There we go. I had to make sure it was saying y'all. But 220 years of census data proves race is a social construct. Okay. The census is a survey the United States conducts every decade, that's every 10 years, to take stock of who lives in this country, in the country. But it's also more than that. The census is a time capsule of a place and an era during which it is collected. The survey's race and ethnicity category are a testimony of that. You can see in this interactive what labels the agency has used over time. Since the census began in 1790, and when they say began in 1790, that means it began through the United States in 1790. Before 1790, our tribes kept the census. And also how the government might have categorized you had you lived in that era. Okay. As you can see here, this is a demonstration. It's like how you were counted. Okay, how you were counted in 2000, someone who identified, this is flashing, so I can't really read it. And there was no such thing as Black or African American. We know that it was American Indian, colored Negro, and that's very important. And that's another reason why we want to, we're going to have to think about our children and future generations when they're trying to trace their family tree. They may not know what Black or African American means. They might not know what colored or Negro means. So we have to, and this is how we're eliminating ourselves from history as well, because we're considered something different every 10 years. Like we're considered American Indian, then we were considered Negro, then we were considered colored. So you got to figure like what, 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road, if we do not teach our children these terms, then they're not going to know how to look up our history. And that's why we can't look up our history. And that's how I was able to navigate through our history, because I know that the terms or the so-called fake nationalities changed. So, it's very important, that you trace back and you start identifying, you trace your family tree and you start identifying as, your great fifth great grandparents did, as who you really are. So that can pass on to your children and the next generations. Okay. So take me as an example. I'm a German born first generation Vietnamese immigrant to New York, or that's how I identify today. In 1860, the government first started counting people of Asian descent, but only people of Chinese descent. Okay, they first started counting people of Asian descent, but only people. See, I don't like the way this is worded, but I'm gonna try to break it down anyway. That's why it's not that easy to read. But so in other words, they were only counting people. They were counting people of Asian descent, but they were categorizing everybody of Asian descent as Chinese. That's what they should have said. Okay. And you're gonna find that a whole lot. So everybody back in the 1860s that were Asian descent were classified as Chinese. Had I lived in the US in that era, the census takers who was the person who got to pick my racial identity for me might have mistaken me as Chinese. So what they're saying is what this person is saying is that back then, it's, like basically the census takers, they came around, and if you go back to like the old census reports, you're going to see it was in handwriting. Some of the handwriting is not legible. There's a lot of things that are not, names and different things that were not spelled correctly. And it was up to the census taker to decide, who you were, which was not fair. They decided who you were. Basically they spelled out your name. They basically filled in all the information. So, the, census was our history was in the hands of the census takers. And that's another important fact to remember when you're tracing your family tree, because whereas, your grandmother's name could have been Edna May, you might have to try different spellings for that. Or where your last name might have been Brown, you might want to try to Brown with the N. You might want to try to, with the E, and you might want to try to Brown without the E, as well as you want to try different variations of spellings, as well as you want to do phonics as well. You want to try to, find a way to, okay, Brown, play around with it. And sometimes I'm going to show you some tricks when it comes down to that. Because sometimes you can put in everything. You can even, and you can just put in, Edna May B or Edna B. And that tricks the data, and it'll pull up everything, every Edna B from that was born, on that date or that time. And so you'll have a better chance of finding, your grandmother. All right. So in 1910, I might have been categorized as other, which is how most non-Chinese or non-Japanese Asians were classified. In 1980, the census finally added a racial category that was more inclusive of me, Vietnamese. So this person was Vietnamese, and their forefathers or foremothers who may have been in America, because it wasn't United States then, it was America. In America in 1860 would have been classified as Chinese. And then in 1910, they would have been other. And then in 1980, finally, they would have been, finally, they would have gotten the classification of Vietnamese. And why is this important? Because if you know you're Vietnamese, you're looking for Vietnamese. And that's another important thing to remember when you're tracing your family tree. Don't, you just can't look at everything literally. You have to sometimes leave off the race. Sometimes you got to come back and put in different races, especially if your family was mulatto, or especially, if your family was mulatto or something. You have to, try different things. And also 1790, I believe, if you were a free person of color, remember I said that race is a caste system and not the skin tone. In the 1790s, if your family was free people of color, meaning that they primarily were Indian, then they would have been classified as white. I have some census reports of my family. On one, they were Negro. For the same census year, two different census reports. One, they were Negro, and two different sides of my family as well. One, they were Negro, and the other one, they were white. And when I first saw the white one, it confused me until I found out about, the fact that, black and white are not skin tones, or not identified with race or anything of that nature, that it's actually a class system. If you were a free person of color and you owned land, then you were upper class, and white basically was the upper class caste system. If you, was an indentured servant or servant, then you would have been classified as probably back then it would have been Negro. It would have been Negro and Negro. And I don't know, I got to see when that law came in effect or whatever. Well, when the United States was constructed, because the United States America is the land, and United States has not always been in existence. when the United States corporation became in existence, that's when that 3/5 of a human came in, and that's when that black, meaning property, caste system. I think it was during Bacon's Rebellion. Bacon's Rebellion. If you want to, research that history in that era, it's out there. Bacon's Rebellion, and that's when the white and the black came about. And it was also for numbers, for voting and different things like that. It was for numbers. So they grouped a bunch of people together for that purpose. Okay, the census has changed as Americans have grown into their views of racial identity. I bet slowly. In 2013, the agency announced that it was going to drop the term Negro. So they, what? Wait a minute. In 2013, the agency announced that it was going to drop the term Negro. So let me explain why this is going to hurt us. And this is going to affect our future generations when they're coming to when it comes to tracing their family tree. And when it comes to if they're trying to discover whether or not they're American Indian, because basically the Negro term directly associates us with the American Indian according to law. And that's why they want to get rid of it. Okay. We went from American Indian, and then Dr. Walter Plecker and the paper genocides. He came up, basically that's when colorism sort of came in here in the United States, where they basically made Indians do the brown paper bag test. And if your skin tone was darker than that brown paper bag, you could not classify yourself as American Indian, or, by your tribe, you had to classify, they made them classify themselves as Negro. And you can look that information, that book, and that person up. His name is Dr. Walter Plecker. And it's called The Paper Genocides. And that's when a lot of American Indians became Negro. Okay. The term was first introduced as a way to classify Black people in 1900 and has been used on and off since then, most recently in the 2010 census. Last year, the Census Bureau also explored the option of Middle Eastern and Northern African as another racial category and might include it in the 2020 census. Currently, people with this background are classified as white. Did y'all hear that? Do I need to say it again? Currently, people of the Middle Easterner, you see it right here, Middle Eastern and Northern African, and those are the dark Africans. Northern Africans, those are like the Moors. That's the Moors. Well, I can't think of all the categories, but I definitely know the Moors are Northern Africans. But Northern Africans is another racial category. But currently these people are classified as white. And like I said, here's your proof in the pudding. When people come from Africa, the dark people come from Africa, they're not considered Black. They're considered white. When certain people come from different other countries and stuff like that, they're not considered. Like somebody was bringing up the other day, I think it was Tone Talks. He was like, he said that a lot of the Latinos are classifying themselves as white, and he thought that was god awful horrible. But that's how and he's considering himself a leader. But that's how, like I said, most of our, like we lack knowledge. Let me put it that way. And he lacks this knowledge. He lacks the knowledge that white and Black are caste systems. So yes, they're classifying themselves, as white, as well as, like I said, back in the day and time, if you own land and things like that, you as a Negro, you were classified as white. Okay, these categories may seem mundane, but how people in the U.S. are counted and referred to matters. Exactly. It does matter. It matters in terms of your history as well. Census data is used to allocate federal programs and heavily informs how lawmakers craft policies, especially around civil rights. Do y'all hear that? Once again, let me read that. Census data is used to allocate federal programs and heavily informs how lawmakers craft policies, especially around civil rights. From legislative redistricting to promoting equal employment opportunities, to detecting whether some racial groups are exposed to more health risks than others. The more granular our definition of who we are, the better our analysis of the current state of our country. Okay, so the census does all of this. So the census is like the main one. It's like the next thing to voting. Doing filling out the census, participating or complying with the census is the next thing to voting, because there's a lot that those numbers are dependent upon. But also, I'm going to tell you in so many words how a deportation and this 2020 census are going to play together. I'm going to tell you how census and voting plays together, because right here, like as it stated, from legislative redistricting to promoting equal employment opportunities. So how they structure our voting, how they structure our voting districts and different things like that, especially on a state and a local level, are all dependent upon the census. So like there's nothing more important than there's other than voting than the census. And I'm gonna tell you about that in a minute. It also how we're always saying, like I just want to give a short example or a minor example. Like we're always saying that in so-called black areas that we don't have good schools, we don't get a lot of funding. This is why, because a lot of times we don't participate in census, and then it's not always our fault, because I also, one of the articles that I posted above, it's a map, and on that map it shows you where there are a lot of areas and stuff in the United States that are considered hard to track census areas. That's what, like, because hopefully by now someone has been out to your house to verify your address, to verify addresses and stuff like that. Because a lot of things change. Buildings that used to be in places are no longer there or abandoned, and that sort of like sets things off, as well as a lot of times they're not tracking on purpose. So this particular census, everything is becoming digital and electronics, which is good as well as it's bad, because we know, and this is the Republicans' idea as well, because we know when it comes down to the Republicans and voting, they are so desperate to make sure that they get in, because they have agendas that their forefathers left them that they're trying to carry out. And they have been trying their best to carry it out up under our noses. We're removing amendments. We're changing the census. We're removing civil rights. We're changing the census. And like I said, if you look up there, it says census data is used to allocate federal programs, heavily inform how lawmakers craft policies, especially around civil rights. So as we see, we know they're trying to remove the voting rights for women, Amendment 19. We know they're trying to get rid of Amendment 14, and we know they did a rollback of they're trying to do, Trump signed an executive order to roll back the Civil Rights Act that protects women and the LGBTQ. So do y'all see? I hope y'all seeing. I'm painting a picture here, and that's why I'm painting a picture here. So I hope I hope everybody's following along with me. Moreover, it's about the importance of calling people what they want to be called and being more respectful to whom they describe. Exactly, because everyone has a right to self-identify. And that's what's illegal about this new 2020 census, that they're taking away people's right to self-identify by sort of forcing you in a corner, like especially for those who have not traced their family tree back, because the majority of the Black people or Negroes in this United States are American Indian and not African American, and definitely not Black. Okay, so like I said, I'm gonna make it a point before, like next month to come on and show everybody, like the tips, tricks, helping with genealogy to get you back to the 1800s, so you can track down, so you can know for yourself that you're not African and that you're American Indian. Because me, when it comes to the 2020 census, I'm okay because I know I'm American Indian, so I'm gonna check American Indian, and I also know what tribe I came from. See, that's the trick. They ask you what tribe. So, it's like you have to sort of, know your tribe. And see, most of your grandparents told you what tribes you came from, what tribes you came from. But I know a lot of people don't forgot because they have bamboozled us into thinking that, we were mixed with them or, whatever as well. So I'm gonna, make a point to come on here and, and try to get everybody back to the 1800s. So, you'll know what tribe you come from. Okay, so I'm gonna read this and then I'm gonna go into, how deportation, ICE, and the census play together. Okay, we're just now taking the words Negro and Oriental out of the federal laws. I don't even want them to take the word Negro out. That's like doing us an injustice, really, because Negro associates us to the civil rights era. Negro associates us back to the American Indians. The whole term Negro associates us to all that was, like all that was good, with our people. It associates us to the Civil Rights Act. It associates us with the Civil Rights Movement. So we don't want that term Negro taken out. We need that term Negro. But let me just continue to read. Along the census changes, Congress voted to modernize the language. And see, here we go. Etymology, language, and how they keep changing language to confuse us. But modernize the language of two laws that protect minority business. Once again, Congress voted to modernize the language of two laws that protect minority businesses. Hey, Lynette Jetter. Hey, BB Nice in the building. Up until then, the laws define minorities as Negro, American Indian. See, look, follow me. This part is very important. Read, it's on the screen. I hope y'all see it. It's right here. The article is up above. But up until then, the laws defined minorities as Negro, American Indian, Eskimo, Oriental, Aleut, or Spanish-speaking individual of Spanish descent, meaning that they came from Mexico, or Latinos. These terms are now replaced with African American, Native American, Asian American, Alaska Native, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, and Hispanic. And they're saying respectively. But no, we need these terms. We need our terms back because we don't want African American because we're not African American. Native Americans should not be called Native Americans. They should go back into the category of, they were called Native Americans were called Oriental. Some of them were called Oriental back, from the 1790s and stuff like that. And we, back before the 70s, and we were the American Indians. The term Oriental has no place in federal law. And at long last, this insulting and outdated term will be gone for good. I agree. It's insulting. Rep. Grace Ming said in a statement, she sponsored the bill that led to elimination of the outdated terms in May and had passed a similar law in 2009 that banned the use of Oriental in all official New York state documents. But once again, those people are connected to the term Oriental. Their ancestors are connected to the term Oriental. So if their generations to come were to try to trace or were to try to associate something with their ancestors from the past, they would not be able to unless they can, knew about their ancestors being classified under the Oriental. Okay. No longer will any law of the United States refer to Asian Americans in such an offensive way. Many Americans may not be aware the word Oriental is derogatory, but it is an insulting term that needed to be removed from the books. And I am extremely pleased that my legislation to do that is now the law of the land, Ming said in this statement. Ming is just like a lot of our politicians doing stuff that is harming the Oriental, really. But like it doesn't really matter because they're not, indigenous to this land, so they don't have to go back too far. Unless there was some type of land or some type of invention or something like that they needed to that their ancestors invented, and there was some kind of monetary gain from that. Then I can't, they're not like us. We have to trace back because we have to, we want to show that we're indigenous, so we fall under indigenous rights under the ADRIP and the UNDRIP, the American Declaration for the Rights of Indigenous People, and the United Nations Rights of Indigenous People, as well as the 1968 Civil Rights Act that Martin Luther King fought for us, which he fought for us as Indian. Okay, fast forward to the latest census in 2010. Now the government employs about 635,000 census workers who help measure the U.S. population. But changes in category reflect how much more diverse the U.S. has become. Since the first census was conducted, both the number of minorities and the percentage of the population that identifies as an ethnic minority has risen significantly. In 2000, the Census Bureau started allowing survey takers to select more than one race. So in 2000, people were able to select, the census takers were able to select more than one race. We've also gone from being people who merely get registered to having a say in how we are registered. Until 1960, census workers determine your race for you. Since then, U.S. residents have had to answer a somewhat loaded question: what race am I? Okay, the census struggled to categorize race. In an ever more diverse country, this question posed a lot of conundrums for people. Census Bureau researchers analyzed about, I'm not going to read all of this, but I really want to get to the butt of it. Okay, let's see. Okay, I'm going to read this one. I'm going to read here. I'm going to start here. What researchers confirmed is somewhat that minorities understand and live every day. Racial identity is complicated, and race isn't biological as the census takers might once have thought. Right? You can't look at a person always and tell. Race was and is socially constructed by the political regimens through intergroup relations and via personal interaction. Okay, Native Americans are one of the starkest examples of this prioritization. Native Americans was not a category in the U.S. Census until about 70 years ago, after the first census was conducted. When a category for Native Americans, Indian, was finally introduced in 1860, only tax-paying Native Americans who had renounced their tribal citizenship and had assimilated to American life were counted. But that did not take into consideration the multitude of tribes that lived the U.S. when European settlers first arrived, which was us and our tribes. But that did not take into consideration the multitude of tribes that lived in the U.S. when European settlers first arrived, which was us. Okay, since then, the term has undergone a number of changes, from Indian to American Indian to Aleut to Eskimo, or American Indian to American Indian or Alaskan Native. One sec. But to some, the term seems insufficient for how large part of the U.S. Native Americans were. Imagine the complexity of what it means to be a tribal member or citizen when there are some 562 recognized tribes, each with their own definition. There's actually 3,000 tribes. All of them are like over 3,000. All the majority of them are state recognized, which means recognized by their states, but they are not federally recognized. Recognized, and so when we say recognized, we mean the 5 civilized tribes or whatever. Okay, which is fake, which is a bunch of bureaucracy. But we'll get into that one day. But who Mark Trahart, the Charles R. Johnson Professor of Journalism at the University of North Dakota, who researched the history of data collection in Indian country. Indian country is Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's that whole side of Oklahoma. That's Indian country, Indian already black. And this was from the Trail of Tears when, they made, not everyone went over there, but they made a lot of people migrate west of the Mississippi into Indian territory, which was Oklahoma. Now, like places like Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street. Okay. So research Black Wall Street if you don't know, but it actually shouldn't be called Black Wall Street. It should be called Indian Wall Street. Okay, if you start with that problem, how does the data reflect what it means to be an American Indian? The 5 major groups in the drop-down menu reflect the Office of Management and Budget race classification. According to the OMB, some classifications as white is someone who has origins in any of the original peoples of Europe. And let me tell y'all something about Europe. The first original Europeans, they were dark. The Moors, the Moors, okay, the Middle East, or North Africa. Once again, let me read that. Someone classified as white is someone who has origins in any of the original peoples of Europe, the Middle East, or North Africa. You hear that? I told y'all. I told you. An American Indian or Alaska Native person is someone who has origins in any of the original peoples of North and South America, including Central America. So, yes, hey, Sean Shine, facts. So, the census before, because BB, you were right, if you're still in here, they changed the census. It was supposed to be American Indian and Alaskan Native. And as an American Indian or Alaskan Native, that classify anybody who is an original person, indigenous person of North, Central, like the Caribbean islands, and South America. Because America, as I keep telling people, is an entire continent. And not, this is like the government is the United States. America is an entire continent. And it's North, Central, and South. So anybody within this continent is considered American. Point blank simple. Indigenous American. So that is one of the reasons why they wanted to change the census, the way that the census questions are loaded or answered. And the way that they're doing it is totally illegal because now, with they still have American Indian, but they want you to also include your tribe. A lot of us have been disassociated with our tribes because we were classified with Dr. Walter Plecker in the paper Genocide, when they made us go from calling ourselves American Indian or Choctaw or Yazoo or Natchitoches, which is Natchez Indians, to Negro. So, that's not fair. First of all, that's not fair. And they know this history and they know that it happened. So that's not fair. But and who maintains their tribal affiliation or community attachment. If you're living somewhat like your grandparents did, if you're like, I'm American Indian. Okay, things have changed. We live in a whole different time. But I still live American Indian because I'm American Indian. I'm still affiliated with my tribe because my family, as long as I'm affiliated with my family, I'm affiliated with my tribe because my family is my clan of my tribe. So boom, here we go again with some trickery. All right. So let's go. Okay, an Asian person is someone with origins in any of the original peoples of the Far East, Southeast Asia, or the Indian subcontinent, including, for example, Cambodia, China, India, Japan, Korea, Malaysia, Pakistan, the Philippine Islands, Thailand, and Vietnam, and a native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander. Now, native Hawaiian and other Pacific Islanders, they should not be considered that. They should be considered something else. They should be considered like us, because Hawaii has always, that's American island as always, and Pacific Island as well. Um, and is someone who has origins in any of the original peoples of Hawaii, Guam, Samoa, or Pacific Islands. Unless a person was omitted purposely in a count, such as non-tax paying Native American, the term all other free persons were assigned to the ethnic minorities between 1790 and 1840. Once again, unless persons were omitted purposely in account, because a lot of us were omitted purposely in account as well, but such as non-tax paying Native Americans, because there are several different categories of an American Indian. There's an Indian not tax, and basically an Indian not tax is somebody who is a member of their tribe. Okay, then there's an urban Indian. That's for somebody who moved to a different city and like pretty much is not associated with the tribe, but knows that they're an Indian. There are like 4 or 5 different categories in which I'm gonna come on and tell you, but there are 4 or 5 different categories of an Indian. But the one you want to shoot for is the Indian not tax with tribal affiliation, because there are a lot of benefits to that. But as long as you're classified as American Indian and you pretty much can show them that you were here before 1800s, then they can not deny you any of the other non-tribal benefits. Unless persons were omitted on purpose, okay, all other free persons were assigned to ethnic minorities between 1790 and 1840. In 1890, Congress mandated the introduction of supplementary black blood. Y'all hear that? In 1890, Congress mandated the introduction of supplementary black blood quantum categories, quadroon and octoroon, for the census. And basically, we're going into that mulatto and that 3/4, 3/5. That's like, they were saying, like, they tried to throw us in there. We the original Indians, but they made us they based it off of the Mongoloid Native Americans instead of basing it off of us, because they knew if they based it off of us, they would have a bigger population, a bigger number. And that's the biggest reasons why they're trying to take away our American Indian indigenous status, and they're trying to fool us like they basically like killed off a lot of the original Indians but how they did it was through paper genocides. But we're still here, and it's the number, because imagine, we talk about funding here, we're talking about census money. A lot of the money that comes from taxes, according to all treaties in the United States, Indian treaties and stuff, is to go to the American Indians. Now, there's some money that's allocated, like we said, to take care of streets, to take care of, to maintain, and things for the United States government. But the majority of the money, United States is not even supposed to be a government according to our treaties, to be honest with you. The United States is not supposed to be a government according to our treaties. But they tricked us. They did. They tricked us. So give me just a moment. Let me roll on down, roll on down. Okay. So pretty much the way they're categorizing the race section and stuff like that is not fair. They're in litigations, and basically what they're doing is people are still trying to fight it, and they're making changes. But the Trump administration, this is all their idea, and it's a trick. And pretty much it's for voting reasons, because they know it's because money is because they want to get elected, so they're trying to make the census benefit them, as well as like they owe China mega a lot of money, and China said they wanted the land. So the only way that China they can even like remotely please China is to to fool us that we're not Indian, and and get us to basically agree to give away our own stuff to China. And they can't, and we can't allow that to happen. We cannot allow that to happen. And that's basically what they're doing, because like if you read any recent articles about Jamaica, it's called Jamaica, and they're Arawak Indians. But if you read any recent articles about Jamaica and the Arawak Indians down there, a lot of Chinese now are in that island. A lot of Chinese are now in the Dominican Republic. They're like taking over those smaller islands first, but China really wants the land to pay off that debt. Because keep in mind that Bush borrowed money, and I'm not sure. I think Obama borrowed money as well. But Bush, told China that we didn't have the money, and basically blamed it on the American Indians, or the indigenous people of this land. He said it was the immigrants from Mexico and the blacks. And we are the people of the land. So he was trying to, okay, it's their fault, take their land. That's how that went. And ain't that some? After they done took our money, they done came here, because like we have resources here. This land owning land, this land, the resources of this land is supposed to go to us. We have uranium, we have coal, we have gas, natural gas here, we have tobacco, we have cotton, we have vanilla. All of this was our original industries. These are what our tribes did for for a living, and we traded amongst each other, and we traded overseas. And so like we're supposed to be in control of that. And yet most of us indigenous people here, they tricked us, and now and they keep us poor and starving. Now we're amongst the poorest, and like the poorest people here, and they have our stuff. They got our stuff. So this is also an important conversation, for Tone Talks and Yvette Carnell, and ADOS and reparations. According to the HR 40, I think they included the fact that a lot of us was American Indians, but American Indians are, like, that's why I push reparations, because either way it goes, whether, we can get it right as we go, but we want to push it, because the more we push it, the more honest they have to be as well about our true history, as well as, we'll get to the point where we divided, where American Indians, because we got a lot of reparations coming. American Indians, we have a lot of reparations coming to us, as well as a lot of our sacred lands. Sacred lands, our burial spots and stuff, where our ancestors are buried. All of that is due back to us. So, this census, reparations, voting, all of this stuff is very important, people, and that's why I'm coming on and I'm breaking things down. But I also have some other corn. Yes, corn was mauve, coffee. Yeah, but I also have some other links up above. I think I included also some links about the census on let me stop the screen sharing. All right, so I just wanted to go over that article, and then I wanted to tell, like, deportation. Like, I don't have the article in front of me. I mean, I don't have the questionnaire, the census questionnaire in front of me, but the African and Black category, it's like Haitian, it's Jamaican, it's narrowing it down, and narrowing it down to Caribbean islands and different things like that when it says African American and Black. And keep in mind that, you know, Trump said he didn't want any the second or third world countries, more people from other countries. And he also said that, you know, like we could go back. He said African Americans can go back where they came from. Well, most of us, first of all, not African Americans, and we didn't come from anywhere. We're American. We're indigenous to here, and he's the immigrant, and he should go back where he came from, if anything. And I'm not, you know, this ain't no major, like, because let me tell you about our culture as well. Us American Indians, we didn't believe the land really was, the treaties didn't get them complete rights over the land. But at the same time, we were harmonious people. We believed in sharing. So, you know, we believe that, you know, like no one should own land. We believe that, you know, like that the land was for all of us, you know, for all of us. So it's not like we're saying that people have to go, you know, no, you know, because I don't want, you know, people to get misconstrued it. It's like we're saying, instead of us being poor, we want our rights. We want our casinos. We want, you know, like we shouldn't be in the position that we're in when we're the indigenous people of this country. And according to the United Nations and according to America, y'all are granting us back our rights according to the treaties, our indigenous rights according to the treaties. So we want our rights. So that's that. And then we want our reparations. So that's that. But are there any questions or anything from the chat? I'm trying to stroll up through the chat. Yeah, I missed this part. But Trump is going to use, if you fill out African American or Black, you stand a chance of getting deported, because they want to deport people for the purpose of being able to control voting. Like he said, one time he said he wanted to import more European-based people in, so that, you know, he can have more of a Republican, they can have more of a Republican, a larger Republican party. So think about that. So, you know, like that's one of the reasons why they're deporting. That's one of the reasons why they're asking you on this particular census, are you a citizen? Because if you sit there and you check, no, you're not a citizen, then ICE will probably be at your door. Okay? Whether, you know, whoever. But, you know, even if you check citizen, if you check that, you know, you're African American or Black, you could possibly get shipped as well. They're fighting like the larger, like New York and California, where they have the larger population of Latinos, and they're fighting because they said this is going to make a big difference in terms of funding. This is going to make a big difference in terms of voting and everything. So, you know, like we got to be aware, and we got to, you know, we got to fight as well. But by all means, make sure y'all fill out the census, and make sure y'all fill out the census. Make sure you trace your family tree. Make sure that you know what tribe you come from. By all means, select American Indian, and don't select, you know, that you're an immigrant. But I think I covered pretty much everything on this list. Coming back. All right. I think I've covered everything on this list. If there are no questions, anybody have any questions? I know it was long. It's probably boring because of politics, but I hope, you know, I gave everybody a good idea. Politics ain't always that fun. Yeah, resident versus citizen. Know the difference, right? Africa, Sean Shy9 said, Africa was introduced to the American Indian in 1950. Our grandparents knew none of us were Indian. Exactly. Shout out to Sean Shy9, Divine Lady. Hey. Okay. Yeah, if you have O type blood, you are American Indian. That is correct. People with blood type O, original. O means original. AB Aboriginal. No, O means original. I don't want to go, but they're also changing the haplogroups because, you know, they like, that's why you shouldn't take DNA tests, because when they created that DNA test, they put all dark people in a African mark. They put all dark people markers in the African category. That's why when you do a DNA test, it'll say you from Africa, because they categorized it as that. Not that you're that, but they categorized it as that. So that makes a big difference. So they have to go back. People are fighting that they go back and recategorize the DNA. And also they found a lot of reasons that they needed to, because it was certain people that weren't matching up. Just like Lucia, it was Naya. Our Naya, the oldest bones found in America did not match up to the ones that were in Africa. So, like they have to go back and reclassify that. But don't, you have to manually trace your family tree by records, land records, census reports, family Bibles, and things of that nature. And I'm going to come on and I'm going to try to give some demonstrations of that. Shout out to Jay Paris in the house, Lynette Jeter, BB Nice in the building, in formation. Excuse my sinuses. DIOR Diva. Jay Dunn on them ones and twos in the building. All right. And I think I spoke to everyone. Does anybody have any questions? If so, make sure y'all can leave them in your comment sections. And for anybody who's going to be participating in the genealogy, tracing your family tree, go ahead and start doing the prep work now. I will even pick one person to demonstrate. I could bring you on the panel or whatever, and you can, if you have your information, I'll use your family information from 1940 and back, and help you see how far we can get in tracing your family tree to help other people to demonstrate to other people how to trace their family tree. A lot of times at cost, I'm willing to do that because it's very important that we learn how to, most everybody who haven't traced their family tree, you need to trace it back at least to the 1800s. And then if you have or whatever, I'm going to come on and I'm going to show you how to trace down your tribes, because wherever your family was in the 1800s, that's 9 times out of what time, that's what tribe they were from, and it's based on location. And I can help you find your tribe, trace your tribes back, and from there you can your own and popping. So I hope everybody gathered some. I hope everybody got everything from today's live stream. I know it was a little heavy. It was a lot of education, information, reading, and things of that nature, but it was very important. And I'd like to thank everybody for supporting me. If you have any questions, make sure you leave them in the comment section, as well as if you have any ideas on any political topics or any topics that you want me to cover. I'll definitely do my research. I'll try to find somebody, even if I don't know, to bring them on. But so, make sure you utilize that comment section for questions or anything of that nature. And peace, love, and hair grease. And until next time. And let me give us a little music to go out with. I think I can. Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't get to focus a whole lot on the chat because I was just trying to get through that. And that's not the only article I had, like, if you stroll up and you check the descriptions, I also have some more articles and stuff like that on how they're really cheating with the census in terms of voting, deportation. They're going to use it in so many different negative ways. So we want to trace our family trees. And I just want to make sure everybody's okay. And I hope that they're able to, I hope that they go back and change the categories, to the proper way that it should be. But here we go. Peace, love everyone. Let's get this vibe right quick. Make sure y'all like, share, and subscribe. Check out I'm going to bring some more stuff to the Teesprings account. It's busy. It's a lot of work in terms of this, but I'm going to try to, update and put some more things on the Teesprings account. So stay tuned to the Teesprings account.
chão, até o chão. Desce, vou até o chão. Desce, vou até o chão. Eu desce, vou até o chão, até o chão, até o chão.